Welcome back to another construct video, and in this video we'll be taking a trip down memory lane, looking at all the projects I worked really hard on, but actually never finished. All the concepts that you look at today will be available in the description, so hopefully you'll be able to download them and they can get a new lease of life from this amazing community. Sit back, relax, and comment what is your favourite unfinished project that you've seen today. So one of the first projects I want to show off today is an idea for machine learning that I came up with inside of Construct. So I've got a really simple car that moves down the track. The only thing is everything in the car is completely randomized in terms of its traits. So the wheels, how bouncy the wheels are, how much friction they've got, the weight of them, the size of the vehicle from width and height is completely randomized, and then it goes down my obstacle course. It gets 15 seconds to try and make as much progress as possible. And then once all cars have been down, it will then take the best 4 and use those traits to make 8 new cars, and then it would go again. So eventually you would get to the stage where you would have, after so many generations, really good cars, the best optimal cars to solve this particular problem. So cars like this would be completely gone, and there'll be other cars, maybe like this one, that would take its traits on towards the next vehicle and get better and better. What stopped this program going any further was the actual reading part. I feel like I was close to a solution, but I had lots and lots of issues where as soon as it got to the next generation, if we skip to a new generation now, we'd get this weird glitch where nothing would spawn, or only some of the car would spawn. And this was the big problem that stopped this going any further, was getting that next generation to work. First part worked really well. Moving on to the generations didn't work well. Sometimes only a single tire would spawn. But it was weird because it's almost like the car's still moving because the camera's still following it, but that's as far as the project got. Really interesting concept, and if you want to try it for yourself, there'll be a link in the description. Next we have a concept for a puzzle game made for mobile. So there'll be 2 arrow keys that you press either side, and these were final by any points, and then you could also use the arrow keys while I was testing it as well. But the main concept of this was these crates that you could slide up and down in one direction only, and you could use this to get to higher ground or different parts. And the idea behind this game is this would turn into a puzzle game where you'd have to get the spaceman to the end, and each level would get slightly more difficult. So in this case, we've got to move this crate down. This little force field would pop him above the crate, but wouldn't allow the crate to get past it. And then we can move this one across, and we can start making our way to the end. There's a bit of a trick crate here that we have to move, and then we can move some final crates out of the way to get our spaceman to the end. I really like the concept for this. I had loads of ideas for introducing lasers and barriers and all sorts into the level. Downside for this is puzzle games are really hard to make, and trying to make unique, interesting puzzles was really difficult, especially because the main advantage of this game, or the main idea of this game, just tended to be get the high ground. If you had the high ground, you had gravity on your side, the levels become really easy. So trying to come up with levels around this concept, while forcing the player not always to be up high, because once you're up high, you can just use gravity to fall down where you need to be, was really difficult. And once I made this early concept, I soon decided that this is as far as the project is probably going to go. But really unique concept. I spent some time making these different crates. There's lots of different animations, so I could come over and change the animations or change the frames so I could have bigger or smaller crates. All the crates were randomly colored. So really nice ideas here. But this one eventually got abandoned, and this is where I made my next mobile game, which was Marshmallow Jump, which was the first one I was able to release. So I'm kind of glad that I abandoned this one because I don't think it would have worked out the way it worked out in my head. Again, if you want to try this, link will be in the description below. This next project really upsets me that it's not complete. This was a Rubiks Cube that I made, and you can rotate the camera up and down. Works fairly smoothly, and I'm really happy with how the logic works to get the Rubiks Cube to spin, and it can spin in multiple directions. Only has a couple of issues. One issue is the hitbox. If I click round about the center, it doesn't work. You need to click actually where the bottom of the 3D shape is, which is a little bit annoying. It's much easier to do it on the bottom side because you've already got the center at the bottom of the hitbox. The other issue is there's no way to rotate on the other 2 axes. We can only rotate on one axis in Construct, and until that can happen, this project remains unfinished. Next we have a very simple zombie shooter. Now, what I really liked about this one was the art style. This was not made by me by any means. I was making use of open game art and find a pack that I really like to actually download instead of making my own. And this was a really nice fun challenge for me, because I'm usually used to making my own stuff completely from scratch, but to have somebody's work already there that I can use in my game was a really big accomplishment. So I thought I'd make a zombie shooter out of the stuff that's available, and it worked out really well. There was an additional weapon that you could pick up, which was a machine gun that fired really quickly. You could walk around, and if you came across zombies, you also got pushed around and knocked around. So this was a really unique mechanic, really unique game, and this came out really well. Unfortunately, it was just a proof of concept, and I didn't see the need to really take it any further. If I was looking back at it now, I would definitely look at adding more weapons, a day and night system, anything like that. But it's fun to mess around with. Definitely needs to add some more mechanics such as zombie spawning. So if you do want to download this one, be aware that it is unfinished, as all these projects are, but have some fun with it. This next project's just a really short one, but I'm sure people could find a use for it. This was a really early concept for Worms. So if you enjoyed the game Worms, this was a train generation and train destroyer. So the longer I hold this key for, the bigger the explosion is. But essentially what we've got going on here is we've got this little ball here. It will spawn loads of it, it will drop down, and then we randomly delete some. So if we play it again, it'll come down, we'll have some, and then it'll stop. And then from there we can delete some of the terrain, and what I want to do is add a randomizer to delete some terrain in the middle as well. But unfortunately it still has a very square look about it, which was sort of my drawback from this. But if you want to do anything with sort of randomly generated terrain or terrain that's a little bit different, then this is a really good project to have a look at. It's a really short concept compared to some of the others you'll see today, but if it's useful, go ahead, link is in the description below. I've saved my final favourite three until last. This is a concept for Smash Brothers, and this is Kirby. So a lot of the moves work. So aerials are all in. We've also got custom special moves. So we've got sort of ranged attack. We've got the classic up B. We can fall through platforms. If we dive down, we can turn it into a stone. So let's try that one again, like so. And for the hammer swing, I've made it so it's actually got some momentum to it as well. So taking a lot of the mechanics from Smash Brothers that I really like and actually put them into a game was really fun. This took a long time to set up. The animations alone, I used animations from a sprite sheet I found online. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. And I had to manually copy all these over, resize them, and it just took such a long time to set up and put together. Where this project needs to go next, if you are looking at downloading this one, is I had the idea of actually having 3 copies of Kirby. One is the main copy, which the hitbox are used to calculate where Kirby's position should be in the world. Then adding another one that has the same animation, so a complete copy and paste, and actually using the hitboxes to be the hurt boxes for Kirby. So when Kirby hits somebody, that's where we're choosing if that's a hit or not. And then another one for the hurt box. So you need 3 copies pinned to each other, making sure that all animations are playing at the same time, and then you can implement a second character. There's definitely a lot to do with this still, but it's fun to play around with. Again, Smash Bros. Has always been a big favourite game of mine, it still is, and to be able to recreate something like this is really great, but you start to appreciate the amount of time that goes into making these games when you see how many different animations are needed, and there's still stuff that still needs doing as well to this. So download this one, have fun with it, especially if you love Smash Bros. As much as me. And if you finish this one, please let me know. I'd love to see a finished version of this. Next, we have a game that I've been working on fairly recently, and if any of you was on the Construct Facebook page, you would have seen a prototype of this already. This was my concept for a mobile game called Welcome to Retail. This started as a 2D concept, and I was playing around with 3D and managed to get into 3D. So what's happening is we've got customers that are spawning. They randomly pick a shelf that has got no other customers by it, and they'll keep doing this until they run out of money. The money they've got is randomized, and then once they've done, they'll head to the checkout and then walk out the shop. If for any reason they cannot go to a checkout because there's not one available, they'll wait by a checkout until there's a checkout available, and then they'll wait to pay at that checkout after. If they have to wait too long to get to a shelf or to get to a till, they'll slowly get angry, and if they get too angry, they will actually leave the shop and will not pay. I was really enjoying working on this project, but two things happened. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to commit to this project properly, and I sort of fell out of love with it a little bit. And secondly, from moving it to 2D to 3D, I noticed a drop in frame rates. So I actually set up what I call a stress shop, which is this one here. This used to be much, much bigger, but this was what I thought was the biggest shop in the game possible, because eventually people would be able to make their own shops, put down where they want the shelves, what sort of shelves they want. So I thought, I'm going to stress this out and create the biggest shop possible that I would want players to have if they got to the very end of the game. And the frame rate was around about 15 frames per second. So it's just not good enough for my vision. I still had a lot of elements to add to this. I want to have a proper outdoor shop. I want to have cars that used to come in and customers would get out the car and then go to the shop. So for it to suffer at this stage, which wasn't even close to where I want it to be, was a really big letdown for me. And I just couldn't put the project back to 2D. It looked too good in 3D. So in the end, I decided to stop it there. But this is a really good project if you ever want to look at pathfinding. The pathfinding is really, really clever for this, on how it's set up and how the customers move around. If you want to look at 3D and set up some 3D stuff, some really good code for this. So again, downloads in the description. If you can do anything with this, fantastic. But unfortunately, this is a project that's now abandoned by me. This final project was a collab between me and a very talented artist who watches the channel and got in contact with me. I'll leave a link to his profile in the description. And he created all these assets for me and said, can you make a game out of them? Originally this was going to be a video, but because I never finished it, I didn't want to make a video out of this for an unfinished project. But essentially you can select your characters, and once you've selected, it will ask you if you're ready to fight. If we click on fight, you'd be taken to an arena, and the aim would to kill the other player. This was a 2-player mode. We had 3 different classes, being the archer, the swordsman, and the spearman. And the spearman could fire a spear or could just jab with a spear, but he had less mobility in terms of jumping, so he didn't have the double jump available. If a player was to die, it would go on to the next match, and it would give the other player a point. We had about 6 or 7 randomized arenas to choose between, each that had their own quirky concepts, such as this one where the floor falls. And then at the end of the day, it would take you back to the main menu if you got a maximum of, I think it was 4 or 5 points. But what made this project really interesting was I didn't have to design anything in terms of the sprites. The sprites were all designed for me, and they turned out absolutely amazing and gorgeous. The arena was really, really great. I was really happy with how that came together, because we had a randomized layout. So these are just different arenas, really quick and easy put together, and then we just put blue or red on each side. So I was involved on the coding side, and then we had an artist on board as well, which made a huge difference. And like I say, if we look at all these different backgrounds that were created for the game, as well as all the animations, these are absolutely gorgeous, and this just made a big difference. It's a really great way to be motivated when you've got all these backgrounds. Unfortunately, the project was close to finished, and that's the hardest part, at least for me. So when you're so close near the end, it's really, really difficult to have that motivation to keep going, to do that final testing and balancing and small fixes to get the game to a finished state. But I know he's working on other projects at the moment. Get in touch if you want to do some work with him. I'm sure he's happy to work with another programmer. But this project is very, very close to finish. It's definitely worth playing. And again, the link will be in the description below. Thank you for watching. Comment below if you're going to take any of these unfinished projects and have a look at them. It'll be really interesting to see which ones are getting that new lease of life. Comment below if you've got any unfinished projects yourself that you wish you went back to. Maybe we can look at doing a video where I go through your unfinished projects. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.